tensions are mounting with Venezuela as the U.S. Coast Guard is pursuing a third oil tanker in the Caribbean Sea.
This comes after a Trump administration official confirmed on Saturday that it had seized a second tanker in less than 2 weeks. According to reporting from the Associated Press, the Coast Guard, with assistance from the Navy, seized a sanctioned tanker called Skipper on December 10th, another part of the shadow fleet of tankers that the U.S. says operates on the fringes of the law to move sanctioned cargo. This past week, Trump demanded that Venezuela return assets that it seized from U.S. oil companies years ago, justifying anew his announcement of a blockade against oil tankers traveling to the U.S. traveling to or from the South American country that face American sanctions.
The actions have led to controversy as China officially condemned the seizure of the oil tankers on Monday. A spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry said, quote, "The U.S. practice of arbitrarily seizing other countries' vessels grossly violates international law. Venezuela has the right to independently develop mutually beneficial cooperation with other countries, and we believe that the international community can understand and support Venezuela's stance of defending its own legitimate rights and interests."
The White House has not yet offered any comments on the pursuit of the third oil tanker, but DHS Secretary Kristi Noem did confirm the apprehension of the second tanker on Saturday. She writes on X, "The United States will continue to pursue the illicit movement of sanctioned oil that is used to fund narco-terrorism in the region. We will find you and we will stop you. Thank you to our brave men and women of the United States Coast Guard and the Department of War."
So Venezuela apparently has the largest known oil reserves in the world and moves thousands of barrels of oil each day. And so as we're doing this, naturally, I think people in Congress and constituents are going to say, this feels like another escalation, just an attack against Maduro. And for me, when we're looking at what America's next steps are and biggest interests are, and I think a lot of people at home are saying, why is it Venezuela? Even if we don't agree with what Maduro does, even if you think that his leadership is illegitimate because of the way that he won or secured his presidency, looking at what's happening there and the fact that we've bombed people and killed people that we haven't proven to be guilty, and our military has moved forward with some of those actions, given the fact that we've skipped now over Congress by labeling this entire mission against Venezuela counter-narcotics mission, and we turned it into a counter-terrorism mission, which allows the president to bypass Congress. And the many steps that we've taken in the last few months that people from Rand Paul to Democrats have called directly out, saying this is a violation of international law. We'd like to see the proof that we need to move forward in this aggressive manner. It just seems like another red flag to say, are we trying to get into some altercation with Venezuela that may lead to an opening to a bigger war? China's jumping in here, and no, the U.S. should not be scared of China or anybody internationally, but we should know if we are agitating and causing something that perhaps the American public or Congress specifically is not aligned with moving forward with.
Yeah, the China point's important. I'll get to that in a moment. I was less concerned about the strikes on the drug-carrying boats. Senator John Fetterman recently had a briefing where he reviewed the intelligence that they were using. He came out very confident that the U.S. was in the right to strike these boats. But the broader issue that I have with how the administration is handling this is that it's very clearly not just about drugs. It seems like they are walking us into a regime change war in Venezuela. And Senator Lindsey Graham effectively said this in a recent comment that he made, saying that everything the Trump administration is doing is signaling that we're getting Maduro out of power, and he needs to be out of power. Of course, Lindsey Graham would be advocating for a regime change war. He's a neoconservative hawk, right, on foreign policy. But the Trump administration, instead of being honest about what it is that we're doing, maybe this is the new Don Roe doctrine and we are just focused on the Western Hemisphere and trying to play politics in Latin America, but explain to us how that's America first. Explain to us how this is in line with no new wars, right? And they haven't done that. Instead, they are trying to slowly ratchet up the pressure and hope that people don't notice. It's like a frog in a pot of boiling water. Now, I think if you look at what they've done so far, the intention seems to be to triangulate China and to break off their relationship with Venezuela. The seizure of the oil tankers, which are a way to get oil to China and get around international sanctions, the striking of the drug boats, which helps facilitate transfer of fentanyl from China, and taking out Maduro, who is a key China ally. I think all of this probably is more about trying to counter CCP influence in Latin America. But when has U.S. involvement in Latin America ever ended well, right? We have never seen these countries end off better than they were before America got involved. And the Trump administration has just refused to provide any explanation as to why they are deciding to do this, how it benefits the American people in the long run, and what does it mean for us to be involved in a regime change war in terms of, are we going to stay in Venezuela?
Right.
Are we helping them rebuild? Are we going to have another migrant crisis where millions of Venezuelans are wanting to come to the United States to escape whatever the U.S. does there? And what does that mean for the immigration system? I just think there's so many unanswered questions, and we haven't been provided with any illumination of the administration's motives here.
And I think there's a lot of what you said there. So something that stuck out to me was the oil prices. After they initially seized the Venezuelan boat, ABC News, the first one, ABC News said that oil prices jumped about 3% from doing that. And then this week, when they threatened to put a blockade for the oil, that made oil prices rise. And so even though we're not feeling the effects right this second, as people are putting oil in their houses, like my parents still do, or putting gas in their cars, we're going to see prices possibly change. And then it goes back to that question that you just asked: how is that America first when people are really in a crunch and in a pinch this holiday season? As we've seen, people spent higher records than we've seen, but also bought way less items, meaning everything is way more expensive. So they don't need those oil prices to also jump. But when I think about regime change and look at historically how we've gone in and thought that, democracy should prevail in these foreign nations, I look at the outcomes of some of those things and what President Trump aligned himself with as he was campaigning. Like, for example, the way that we pulled out of Afghanistan and Taliban is now back in leadership there, and how we thought that they should be led differently, but it leads to some other group like ISIS coming in and taking control of a territory. I think that America has to remember that we've tried historically to remove leadership in a certain region of the world, and to no avail, will continue fighting, and then they may go back to something worse, or they may go back to the same leader or something even worse, or the same leadership, agenda. And I think that that's something that we have to make sure that we're ready to accept and deal with, or maybe this will be the one time where that doesn't happen. But Americans are not even yearning or calling for this, and neither is Congress. And I think that that is the biggest issue for most people, even if they don't like Maduro in any way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Americans don't want to see us get involved in another 20-year conflict only for the country that we're supposedly helping to end up worse off on the other side of it, and spending billions of dollars, American taxpayer dollars, through the Department of War to effectuate this agenda that nobody asked for. And it's very much this neoconservative strain of thought that we thought we had eliminated from the Republican Party over the past 10 years with the rise of Trump. Now gaining ground again and just replicating these mistakes of the past. And it's so frustrating, as we were talking about the fight for the future of the conservative movement and for the Republican Party.
This is another big one.
Right? This is another big fight that's happening. And I think people kind of took for granted that the hawkish ways of the past were dead and gone for good. But this is a reminder of how quickly those things can creep back in.
Yeah, this is a big thing. Because I thought that President Trump was so different, even looking how we just were talking about Cheney and
right,
George
or like
W.
John
Bush.
Bolton. Like, I thought those people were gone. But now
they are showing their heads
Venezuela.
again. Next on Rising, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are considering inherent contempt charges against Attorney General Pam Bondi over the Epstein files. Stay tuned.